Welcome back to the Retirement Planning MadeEasy.com show. I'm your host, as always, Chris Hammond. On this show, we are for retirees and people that are getting close to retirement within, say, 10 to 15 years. They'd like to retire in that time frame, and they just want to not have to worry about the stress and anxiety of, am I doing the right thing with my investments? Am I taking the right actions to minimize my taxes? Have I saved up enough to be able to retire and not run out of money? So we talk about all of those issues on the show here. And today, on today's episode, I want to talk about this idea of coasting into retirement with deliberate actions. So in life, we tend to just kind of keep doing the same things over and over again. We coast. It takes effort to do deliberate actions. So if there was a way that you could combine the two together, then that would kind of be the best of all worlds, wouldn't it? So that's what I'm going to talk about today. One of the big realities that we have in this world is entropy. So entropy is this scientific notion, but it's kind of applied in other areas. Other areas outside of science. And what we're talking about with it today is just this idea that things tend to go toward disorder over time if they're not managed, if they're not looked after. Things just want to fall apart. That's just kind of life. Everything wants to fall apart if we don't do something about it. That's what entropy is. So let's talk about some examples of that as that relates to your own retirement. We'll get to that, but coasting into retirement kind of implies that you're just not being active and looking into things, but but with deliberate actions, we can do this in a deliberate way, right? So let's talk about some examples of coasting outside of retirement and how things just kind of fall apart, all into disorder. One example would be your yard. You don't you don't mow it. You don't trim the shrubs. They just goes into disorder. Your hair, your nails, if you don't cut them, just gets worse over time. Your spending, if you ignore it, it's so easy for spending to get out of control if you don't actively rein it in. I mean, the big one now, and I sound like a broken record. I do talk about this. I mention this example a lot, but that's okay. I'm a dad. I can repeat myself at this point in life. The big one now would be all these streaming services and things that are subscription based that are just kind of on autopilot. They're just if and you may not even use the service anymore. I mean, nothing wrong with stuff that's on autopilot. I have a lot of things that we'll talk about even in this episode that's important to put on autopilot that I do as well. But it can really balloon out if you add things and then forget that you added them, or if you sign up for something for free and they just require your credit card because if you don't like it after 60 days, they'll start charging you, but you can cancel before then, and then you forget to cancel. Everything just goes to disorder, right? Your clothes, when they're not washed and pressed, they're just going to look worse and worse. That's just how it is. Your health, without a plan, it's so easy. It's a lot easier to get into a bad health situation than it is to get out of it. Your skill sets, if you don't practice a musical instrument for a while, you get worse at it. If you don't practice public speaking for a while, same thing there. The reality is that life is a constant swimming upstream just to stay in place game. That's really what we're up against in life. And it's not just in retirement planning, it's in everything, but it is also in retirement planning as well. Unless there was a way that we could take deliberate actions that would allow us to coast into retirement. Now, what's so hard about taking deliberate actions with anything is that we have limitations as people. There's only so many things that we can focus on at one time. I can't focus on everything. I can't focus on being in great shape, being a great dad, being a great husband, being a great everything, blah, blah, blah. Everybody faces that. So let's talk about some of the limitations we face. But before we do that, I want to just share with you, if you hadn't had a chance, go over to my website, retirementplanningmadeeasy.com. I've got a webinar up that's all geared toward people that are retired or want to retire in the next 10 to 15 years, called Reaching Retirement and Thriving Beyond: How a Customized Financial Strategy Helps You Overcome the Three Main Threats That You Will Face in Retirement. All retirees face these threats, and we talk about that in the webinar and how to help overcome those. So be sure to go over there, check it out, put your name and email in there, and you will instantly be able to watch that webinar. Very helpful stuff. So let's talk about limitations. What's some of the limitations we have? Time, focus, money, energy. There's only so much time in the day to focus on things. I can't be a star football player and the math whiz at the same time. It's just not going to happen. Only got so much time to do that. I may not have enough focus to do either one either. Another limitation is money. Maybe you don't have the money to purchase certain things to make a job easier that it can go on autopilot and be done for you easily. Or energy. Limitations on energy are real and they just get more limited the older we get. At the end of the day, it is time to put the PJs on and get in bed, right? That is the limitation. That is a reality we all face right there. That's why we coast because it's such a battle otherwise. Now let's give 3 examples of financial entropy. Let's talk about that. And all of these are important because these things will go to disorder over time and they can have bad effects for your retirement. Number one, your portfolio's makeup. By makeup, I mean asset allocation, what you are invested in. If you start out with a portfolio that has 50% stocks and 50% bonds, over time, those stocks should outperform those bonds and they will start to grow and make up a bigger percentage of your portfolio than the bonds do. So if you thought you were happy with a 50-50 portfolio and you quit even looking at it or doing anything with it, over time, that thing's going to become a 60-40 portfolio. It may go to a 70-30 portfolio. And if you don't keep an eye on this, before you know it, your portfolio is taking a lot more risk than you ever feel comfortable taking. And you're wondering why, when the market goes down, you're getting hit so bad. Well, I had a 50-50 portfolio. What was going on? Well, that's what was going on. Over time, everything just goes to disorder given enough time. Your portfolio's makeup is no different. And that's so important when it comes to your retirement planning because your portfolio is what's going to support you. What Social Security doesn't cover in your expenses, your portfolio is going to be the thing that steps in there to fill that gap. And it's got to provide that income for you on a monthly basis. And it also has to grow over time to be able to take care of the you that's going to be around 20 plus years in retirement. That's one example of financial entropy. Another one would be your tax planning. Things aren't going to just happen on their own with tax planning. And you can go and your accountant will do your taxes for you and they will record historically what happens and keep you honest with the IRS. That's what their job is to do. But a lot of times they're not going to have time on their hands because they're swamped with all the deadline approaching for April 15th, and they have so many people all coming in at once. They're not going to usually, not all of them, or most of them are going to take time to say, hey, you can do this and you can do this and potentially save you taxes over the next 10 to 15 years. It's probably not going to happen. And if you don't proactively do something on that, it all goes into disorder. So if you don't do that Roth conversion before December 31st of the year, you can't go back in time and do that. It's just not how it works. Tax planning is another one of those issues that requires deliberate actions. Your progress toward and I'm going to use quotation, air quotes, the number. And what I'm talking about with that is the number that you are wanting to reach for retirement. Now, a lot of us have this number, this savings goal that first of all, may be grounded in reality and it may not be. It may not be achievable. If I had a savings goal of $1 trillion, that is not grounded in reality, obviously. But aside from being grounded in reality, you may have a goal that is grounded in reality. But how do you know that's the right number to be going toward? Yeah, a lot of times people may say, I need $1 million. Well, what if you don't? Well, you may need less than that. You may need more than that. You don't know. Your number, it may be different from the guy across the street based on how much you're wanting to spend every month, how big your Social Security check is going to be, a lot of different factors like that. But your progress towards your number, if you just set it and forget it and you have your contributions going That's a great way, by the way, to do a coasting into retirement is setting your contributions on your paycheck going into your 401k. It's a good example. We'll talk about that in a second. But um, if you're not looking at seeing what does that number actually need to be, like having some numbers crunched for you to say like, okay, my retirement plan says the number needs to be this, and the contributions I'm making right now, if I up them, then I can reach that number. But if I just keep kind of going the way I'm doing it now, we're not going to get there. The numbers are showing that we're not going to get there. It's all going to go into disorder and fall apart if you don't look at this and make sure you're doing the right thing as far as your contributions and the way you're invested too. That plays even as your portfolio grows, the allocation plays an even bigger role and has a bigger impact than the contributions you keep making on a biweekly basis, right? So it's gonna be a big deal. So here's what to do as far as coasting into retirement. Put as much as you can on autopilot. And some of these things you're probably already doing. I have a list here. Some things that you're putting on autopilot already would be things like your mortgage payments. We all put that on autopilot. You probably have a lot of other bills like your health insurance, your homeowner's insurance, car insurance, credit card bills getting paid off from your bank account on auto payment, your salary, when you get paid, you don't get a physical check in your hand. You get it deposited directly. It's on autopilot. It just goes straight to there. So you're already doing a lot of these things on autopilot. Another one is your 401k contributions. It's just once you set that thing up and you do the deliberate actions, then that helps you to coast into retirement to avoid some of that entropy of things just not getting done, falling into disorder. The catch is that deliberate actions have to be made initially on the front end in order to be able to coast in and get the good results. So action still has to be taken up front in order for you to coast. You still have to set up all those auto payments. You still have to set up things like that. This means that you should do, at a minimum, the following: deliberately do this, and then you can kind of have an idea of what you need to be coasting into and numbers and goals you need to be hitting for retirement. You need to, first of all, start out by doing the best you can to put a price tag on what you want your retirement to look like. Now, what I mean by that is that you look and see what is the price tag of your lifestyle for this month. Like, how much does it really cost you to live your lifestyle this month? How much did it cost you on average over the last 12 months to live your lifestyle? Each month, on average, how much did it cost? Because that's a pretty good indicator of what it's going to cost you in retirement. Maybe a little bit less. It may be a little bit more in your early years when you first retire. You got a bucket list. You're just excited. Takes that sweet freedom. I don't have to be anywhere at 8 in the morning. Don't have to be trapped somewhere till 5 in the afternoon, in the evening. And now I'm going to go out and I'm going to spend it up. Maybe it's a little bit higher in those first year or two. But if you put a price tag on what your life looks like right now on a monthly basis, that's going to help you to have that price tag and understand what it's going to look like on a monthly basis in your retirement as well. And you can use that figure to help you to estimate how much you need to be accumulating for your retirement. So if you know that you're going to need X amount of dollars to spend every month because that's what your lifestyle is right now, you can go look and say, well, if Social Security projects I'll have this much covered that they're going to give me. So I really need to fill this gap of, say $2,000, $3,000 a month, whatever it may be for you. It's different for everybody. And so you can say, okay, well, that means I need X amount of dollars to reach my number, my retirement savings goal. Probably not going to be $1 million. Could be more, could be less. It's probably not going to be that exactly, but it's going to help you to know what you need to be aiming toward. And then this is what's important: invest and save in a manner that could be reasonably expected for you to reach that number. What I mean by that is if you need to save more, there's ways to run the math on that to say, yeah, I need to save this much to reach a certain goal, and also invest in a way that you can say it's reasonable that I should, over a long period of time, have X amount of return on my portfolio. And if I have this amount of return and I'm putting this much into it every year, then it is reasonable to expect that I would hit this number. And that number is the one you've already figured out that you need based on, well, if I'm having to take withdrawals from my savings, I need this much in that nest egg. I'm going to have that much. That at a minimum would be what you need to do. And once you have that figured out and dialed in, then just use simple tools to automate to do this. As far as if you look at your numbers and you say that you're not contributing enough into your savings account to get that nest egg up to where it needs to be, then just increase your contributions. See what you can afford to do, increase your contributions. If it's if it's pushing up against your budget, look at your budget. Are there areas of waste in that budget where you're paying for things you're not using each month? Going back to the streaming services example, right? That'd be a good example, right? Gym membership that you never go to. That's another example. Look at that. If that is, cut that out, use that contribution. Do what you got to do to get that contribution where it needs to be, and then invest it the right way to where it's actually growth. If you need a lot of growth and you're investing in something just like bank CDs, that's what you're putting your money into, you're probably not going to reach your growth goals. You're not going to reach where you need to be in retirement. And then another thing you can do, so you can set that on, do a deliberate action today so you can coast into retirement with that. And then other things are going to require a little work, but you can automate it to remind yourself of that. So every November, every December, whatever it is, you could use a Google Calendar alert that pops up and says, check out my portfolio, rebalance it. If you're wanting that 50-50 portfolio of 50% stocks, 50% bonds, put a reminder that says at the end of the year, go check. Is it still there? Have my bonds or my stocks, have they outgrown and now they comprise 60%? Go in there and rebalance it. Look at that. You can set things up to automate it to have that deliberate action, but you're really not having to think about it all the time. You're still coasting a lot. So at a minimum, those are some things that you can do to help you coast into retirement with a few deliberate actions that you can set up in the present to help you out along the way. The bottom line is entropy, it's a reality. And one way and that's just entropy in this discussion, the tendency for everything to just be disordered over time if things are not managed properly. And we can fight that as much as possible as we can with using automation, things that can make things just coast you down into retirement, so to speak. A financial plan helps you do this. Financial plan that you put in place that tells you I need to rebalance at a certain time. I need to be invested properly. I need to know, first of all, what is a proper asset allocation in my portfolio that would stand a reasonable chance of growth to get me to where I need to be. Financial plan is going to help you to put that together as well. And lastly, I mean, get help if you need help on this. I mean, that is very common. There's a lot of moving parts to this. This can be very complicated. And especially if you're busy, you're doing your job that you're good at, you go to work, you do your thing. That's great. A lot of times you don't have the time, energy, or the desire to want to like look into this and do all of this on your own and be a do-it-yourselfer. Not everybody wants to do that. Not everybody finds that enjoyable or has a desire to do that at all. And get help if you need help on that. That's very common. And there's retirement planning advisors out there that can help you out with that. That is all I've got for you for today. If you haven't had a chance yet, be sure to check out retirementplanningmadeeasy.com. Go over there. I've put up a webinar masterclass called Reaching Retirement and Thriving Beyond, how a customized financial strategy helps you overcome the three main threats that you'll face in retirement. All retirees will face this. That means you too. And we go over what they are and what you can do to help overcome those. So just go over there, check that out. I know you're going to find some good information in it. That's it for today. I'll see you guys on the next video. Have a good one.